Hi, I'm Stuart Rogers, co-founder of Badass Empire with Victoria Loskatova, and this is another episode of Badass School. Now, you may have noticed that as we work through the pandemic and as different countries start lifting all of their restrictions, we're actually starting to get back to the point where we can travel again. Now, it does mean that, of course, we can take, in the UK, for example, long car journeys. We can do many more things. In some countries, like in Portugal, they've largely opened everything up, and other countries that did respond very early to the pandemic are actually starting to reap the rewards, especially those places that rely heavily on tourism, and they're starting to open up flights. So let's talk about that. I mean, I know there's lots of different ways to travel. You've got cars and trains and boats and so on and so forth. But of course, people are wanting to get back on planes, especially people like me. As you may know, I'm a digital nomad. Don't have any fixed abode, and so flying around the world for me is something that's very natural. Now, I do typically move from country to country every 5 days on average. Every year, I do in excess of 160,000 miles of flying. And so I've built up a whole armory of different tricks and tips when it comes to how to book the very cheapest flights, whether it's a planned flight or whether it's just something spontaneous where you need to quickly be able to make a decision and get the cheapest possible flight on that day. So I'm going to tell you today what some of the best tools are for getting the cheapest flights, regardless of whether it is a spontaneous trip or whether it's a planned trip. Let's deal with spontaneous trips first. Now, my flight comparison site of choice by far is Mymondo. Mymondo is for me the best engine on the internet for finding the cheapest flights. It's got a number of different very cool tools built into it, and it also includes all of the flight data. Now, there are some comparison sites out there that check for the big flying, big airlines, but they don't actually check for some of the budget airlines. Mymondo has them all, so it will check for the budget airlines as well. Yes, I know there are several others that check all of the flight data, but there's a few other little tricks up Mymondo's sleeve. For example, when you choose your dates and you choose your destinations, and you can choose, by the way, from one way to return flights to also multi-city trips. So you can put in all of the different stops, and it will work out the best possible price for the entire route for you. But it also, once it shows you the initial results, you can scroll up to the top of the app or to the top of the website, and you can see a price table, and you'll see where it might actually be cheaper to fly the next day or the day before. It actually shows you an entire week or so of flight prices, just in case your dates are slightly flexible. It will then look through absolutely hundreds of different options for you, and you can then add filters to say, well, if it finds not just the airport that you put in, it actually finds all of the closer airports as well. But you might have a preference. You might not want to fly out of those other airports. For example, when I go in and out of Berlin, I'm really looking for flights that go in and out of Tegel, as opposed to Schönefeld, because for me, Tegel is very close to where I want to be, very easy to get in and out, and it's actually a very quick airport to get through to as well. So you can do all sorts of filters. You can filter by airline. If, like me, you don't like flying Ryanair, you can just uncheck that. And you can also filter by airline groups as well. So if you've got a loyalty card with, say, One World Alliance, you can tell it to just show you the flights with the One World Alliance. So I love Mymondo. I think it's a great tool for finding the best flight prices. But what if your plan is to go between one location and another on specific dates, and they're in the future, so you've got a planned trip? Well, planned trips, there is another trick up your sleeve that you can use, and this trick comes courtesy of an app called Hopper. Now, Hopper is brilliant. What you do with Hopper is you open it up and you put in the details of your planned trip. As before, you can choose one way, return flight, you put in the dates, and then it will find the cheapest flight prices for you for that particular flight. But that's not the trick. The trick with Hopper is once it's done that initial search, you can then watch that trip. And what happens inside Hopper is using machine learning techniques, and they are monitoring constantly and running all sorts of algorithms all across all the different flight routes, flight prices for every trip in the world. Now, they will show you when you do that search for the cheapest flight price whether it is likely that that flight price is going to go up or down or stay the same. In other words, Hopper will tell you very simply and succinctly if you should book that ticket now or if you should wait to book that ticket. When you choose the watch this flight option, it will then basically look at that flight all of the time. Anytime that price changes, it'll send you a notification on your phone, and it will say the price has changed to this. We expect it to go up very soon, so buy it now, or we expect it to go down very soon, so wait. It will tell you what you should do with that information. So by using Hopper, every single time the flight price changes, you will get a notification from them to say whether you should wait or whether you should buy now. It's invaluable. And you can actually go through and then buy those tickets using Hopper. It is quite a cheap way to do it. They use similar prices to most of the comparison engines. There is a little bit put on top because that's how Hopper makes its money. However, what I do is I will then, once I've got the information from Hopper, go and put that same flight route into Mymondo, and quite often I find that Mymondo has a slightly better price than Hopper does. Hopper is very, very useful for informing me as to when I should buy a ticket for a particular trip, but I still find Mymondo a little bit better. Now, what are some of the other tips and tricks? Well, there's a brilliant site called Skiplagged. Now, what Skiplagged does is it helps you find what is called a hidden city trip. Now, a hidden city trip is where you have a connecting flight, and the connecting flight goes through your the connecting flight that goes through your destination is cheaper than the direct flight to your destination. So instead of doing A to B and connecting here, this is where you want it to be all the time. What happens with Skiplagged is it will find the routes that connect through your actual destination, and then you just don't get on this flight. And quite often, when you get to your layover place, as it supposedly is, and you just stay there, quite often those Skiplagged deals will actually be a lot cheaper than a one-way or a return flight. Now, basically, I don't check a bag, so you have to think about Skiplagged, because if you check a bag, there are quite often times, unless you're going transatlantic across to the United States, where you have to retrieve your bag at the first port of call, but there are quite often times when you will check your bag in at the first place, and it will automatically find its way to the last place, and so therefore you won't have your bag when you don't take the flight. It'll go to the wrong place. So I don't check bags because all that I own is in one backpack, and therefore I've always got everything I need with me. But be careful about Skiplagged if you do check a bag. It's not really useful for anyone that checks bags. If you're doing, say, European destinations or anywhere where they're going to send the bag to your final destination, because you're not going to see your bag. The other thing you need to do is check out Yapta. Yapta lets you know when your already booked fare gets offered for less elsewhere, and depending upon the airline's individual policies, you might be eligible for a refund to basically give you that amount back, the difference back. It doesn't always work because some airlines, especially the budget airlines, do not have those policies, so you won't get that money back. But if you're flying on one of the bigger airlines, the British Airways of this world, then Yapta can get you money back if the ticket is found cheaper elsewhere after you've bought it. And then finally, I must give a huge mention to App in the Air. App in the Air is brilliant. What it does is you can link it to your Gmail account. Anytime you get a flight confirmation, it'll suck all that information in and immediately populate App in the Air with your flight information. You can also add flights manually, of course. You can do it manually by putting in the date and flight number, or even scanning your boarding pass. Now, once you've got all your flights in App in the Air, App in the Air will inform you with notifications, really useful notifications. It will tell you when, for example, you're 3 hours before check-in closes. And that's usually a good time to head to the airport, especially for international flights. It will tell you of any delays whatsoever, and it usually tells you of delays before you actually see the delay on the screens in the airport. It also tracks all of your miles or kilometers, and that's useful for me because I like to be as sustainable a nomad as possible. So what I do is I take that data from App in the Air, I put that into a website, and it then tells me how many trees I need to buy at the end of the year in order to offset all my carbon emissions. And I use a company that plants trees in paper-making forests because every time they cut down one tree to make paper, they plant 3 more in its place. So I'm actually heading towards negative carbon because I'm not just offsetting my carbon, I'm actually basically using trees to take in carbon dioxide and put out more oxygen than I'm using on the flights. So those are my 5 best tools for finding and booking the best unscheduled and scheduled flights, for making sure that you take advantage of hidden city deals where they are useful for you to do so, for getting discounts back on any tickets you already bought, and for tracking every single one of your flights and being fully informed of what's going on at all times. Now, I hope that's really useful for you, especially if you're starting to get back on flights. If you're not, I'm sorry for the potential FOMO I've given you. Think of it more as JOMO, joy of missing out instead of fear of missing out. If you do like to fly and you can't right now, don't worry, things will get back to some kind of normality in the not too distant future. But do use those tools, use them to the best of your ability when you get a chance to fly, because they really will save you money and save you a lot of time and stress as well. And stress is important to be saved when you're flying, because one of the many things that causes jet lag when you're traveling many time zones is stress levels. You want to keep your stress levels as low as is humanly possible. So all of these apps are designed to reduce your stress, which is a great thing too. Hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget, Badass School is an extension of Badass Summit. We have 28 amazing speakers ready to teach you all sorts of actionable things in business, marketing, and lifestyle. Head over to badasssummit.com. Thanks for being our patron. We really appreciate it. Please do tell all your friends about us. We'd like to think that we provide you with a lot of value for not a lot of money. So we would love more support so that we can keep on doing this. And we'll see you on the next episode of Badass School. Thank you so much.